Microsoft didn't just invest in OpenAI. They invested over $13 billion into a company that at the time wasn't even profitable. They gave them infrastructure, compute power worth billions, and access to one of the most valuable resources in the world, scale. In return, they helped turn OpenAI into a company now valued in the tens of billions of dollars. But behind the scenes, something changed. A deal was made. A deal reportedly worth up to $50 billion. And now, the partnership that built AI might be breaking apart. For years, Microsoft and OpenAI weren't just partners. They were aligned. Strategically, financially, structurally. Microsoft had something no one else had: exclusive access. If you wanted to use OpenAI's models, if you wanted access to GPT, you went through Microsoft Azure. That wasn't optional. That was the system. And behind every API call, every ChatGPT request, every AI product built on top of OpenAI, there was Microsoft, generating billions in cloud revenue in the background. Until recently, because now there's a new player in the picture, Amazon, and a reported $50 billion agreement that could break everything. To understand why this matters, you need to understand what Microsoft actually built. Back in 2019, Microsoft invested $1 billion into OpenAI. At the time, it looked like a bet, a risky one. But that bet didn't stop there. Over the next few years, Microsoft increased its commitment. More funding, more infrastructure, more integration. Eventually, that number grew to over $10 billion in additional investment, bringing total backing to more than $13 billion. But this wasn't charity. Microsoft wasn't just funding innovation, they were building leverage. Because every OpenAI model ran on Microsoft's cloud, Azure. And cloud infrastructure isn't cheap. We're talking about data centers costing billions of dollars to build and maintain, high-performance GPUs, energy consumption, global distribution. This is industrial-scale computing, and Microsoft owned it.
And for a while, that gave them control. But control like that doesn't last forever, especially when the company you helped build starts becoming more valuable than the investment itself. OpenAI wasn't just growing, it was becoming essential. The company behind the most powerful AI models in the world. A company influencing industries worth hundreds of billions of dollars. And when a company reaches that level, it doesn't think the same way anymore. Less about dependence, more about independence, more about control. Because relying on a single provider, even one that invested $13 billion, comes with limits. And limits don't scale. Here's what most people don't understand about AI infrastructure. The compute costs are staggering. Training GPT-4 cost OpenAI an estimated $100 million just to train once. Running ChatGPT for millions of users? That costs roughly $700,000 per day. Per day. Multiply that across months, across years, across multiple models and products, you're looking at billions of dollars in infrastructure costs annually. And OpenAI doesn't own that infrastructure. Microsoft does. Which means every dollar OpenAI makes from AI, a portion goes back to Microsoft just to keep the system running. That's not just partnership, that's leverage. But here's the problem OpenAI faced. As they scaled, as ChatGPT exploded, as enterprise contracts piled up, the costs grew faster than the control. Reports from late 2025 suggested OpenAI was burning through cash. Not because the company wasn't valuable, but because running AI at this scale requires infrastructure that costs more than most companies can sustain. And relying entirely on Microsoft meant OpenAI had no negotiating power, no alternatives, no leverage. So they went looking for one. Then came the reports. OpenAI was exploring a massive cloud agreement, not with Microsoft, with Amazon. A deal reportedly worth up to $50 billion. Let that sink in. $50 billion. That's not just a partnership, that's a shift in power. Because Microsoft's biggest advantage wasn't just the investment, it was control. The idea that OpenAI's infrastructure was locked into Azure, that if you wanted GPT, you had to go through Microsoft. But if OpenAI begins working with Amazon Web Services, that control starts to break. And once it breaks, it doesn't come back the same way. Now imagine this from Microsoft's perspective. You invest $13 billion, you build the backbone, you carry the compute costs that can reach billions per year. You scale the company, you integrate their technology into everything. Windows, Office, Bing, GitHub. You make OpenAI the foundation of your entire AI strategy. And then they start exploring a deal worth up to $50 billion with your biggest competitor. Not a side move, a structural shift. That's not just business, that's a direct threat.
This is where it gets serious. Because in March 2026, reports emerged that Microsoft was considering legal action. Not over headlines, over contracts. Because deals at this level don't happen on handshakes. They happen on binding agreements, exclusivity clauses, access restrictions, revenue structures. And if those conditions are violated, the consequences aren't small. We're talking about billions in potential losses, billions in disputed control, billions in future revenue. This isn't just a disagreement, it's a power shift. Here's what the contracts likely include. Based on similar partnerships at this scale, based on how cloud deals are structured, Microsoft almost certainly negotiated control. Not total control, but structural control. Meaning OpenAI could use other providers for specific use cases. But the core infrastructure, the backbone, had to run through Azure. If OpenAI starts shifting that backbone to Amazon, that's not just a change, that's a breach. And breaches at this level trigger consequences. Financial penalties, contract renegotiations, legal disputes. Microsoft didn't invest $13 billion to watch OpenAI walk away. But here's Sam Altman's problem. He's stuck. On one side, Microsoft, the company that funded OpenAI's rise, the infrastructure partner, the investor who believed in the vision when no one else did. On the other side, operational reality, compute costs eating into revenue, the need for negotiating power, the pressure to scale without being locked into a single provider. And in the middle, Amazon, offering $50 billion, offering infrastructure scale, offering flexibility. So what does Sam Altman do? Does he stay loyal to Microsoft and accept the limitations? Or does he take the Amazon deal and risk a legal war with one of the most powerful companies in the world? Neither option is clean. And this brings us to the real question. Who actually controls OpenAI? The company building the most powerful AI in the world, is it independent? Or is it controlled by the billions invested into it? Because if OpenAI can shift alliances, if it can move between partners, if it can walk away from exclusivity, then everything changes.
the balance of power, the flow of money, the control of the future. But if Microsoft can enforce the contracts, if they can block the Amazon deal, if they can keep OpenAI locked in, then OpenAI isn't really independent. It's control. And control is what this entire war is about. And this isn't just about Microsoft and OpenAI. This is about the entire AI race. Because whoever controls the infrastructure controls the models. Whoever controls the models controls the applications. And whoever controls the applications controls hundreds of billions of dollars in future value. Right now, that control is up for grabs. Microsoft thought they had it locked down. $13 billion bought them leverage. Or so they thought. But now, Amazon is offering $50 billion, and OpenAI is listening. Which means the partnership that built AI might be breaking apart. And this is just one piece of a much bigger story. Because while Microsoft and OpenAI are dealing with this shift, other companies are making moves just as aggressive, some involving billions of dollars, others involving complete control over data, infrastructure, and intelligence. And most of it is happening quietly, behind closed doors. If you want to see how the rest of this plays out, if you want to understand who's actually controlling AI, hit that subscribe button, because the next videos in this series break down the power moves happening right now. Drop a comment. If you were in Sam Altman's position, would you stay with Microsoft or take $50 billion and risk everything? I'll see you in the next one.